Hi. Hey gang. How's it going? Welcome to what was the day today? Tuesday. I feel like I've got a little emotional hangover today after all of the niceness of yesterday. I feel I feel dead today. I had a 2-hour nap. I don't think I've napped in a decade. And today I just good Lord, I've got nothing in me today. I literally finished this chapter about 15 minutes ago. There was a very real possibility that we were not going to get this chapter today. But it is done. It's been read to Tom, who has big thoughts on the vote for tomorrow. And we're ready to go. So I'm hoping this is the pick me up I need. Congratulations to Lisa's boyfriend on being through to the next stage of a job interview. That's amazing. Well done. And really hard to do interviews over video. So have an extra slice of pizza from us. Well done. Hi to everybody else that's chatting. Well done for getting out on a run, Catherine, and everybody chatting. I think there's a lot of people that have had a tough one today. I know I have. Some good day yesterday and then some difficult personal stuff to deal with today. It's difficult, isn't it? It's difficult. Sarah says, excited to hear you're going to be on Stu Goldsmith's Infinite Sofa on Thursday. Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to that too. I love Stu to bits. He's so lovely. That's exciting. London Calling says, what won the vote? Well, I'm not going to tell you. Ooh, my face was horribly close then, wasn't it? I'm not going to tell you. I'm going to let you find out during the chapter. But I love that some of you have been counting up the votes to try and question. Georgina says, no stress if you ever need to cancel, put yourself first. Yeah, I completely would. I know, I absolutely would. And it's lovely knowing I've got your chapters in the bank. I've got 3 lovely chapters that you guys have sent in that we could read. So if ever there's a day that I can't write, but I think for me, like, if I hadn't written it today, I think I'd have felt worse. You know, when you have one of those days where you're struggling with something and you know the options there. Like I did cancel one of the things I was supposed to do today because I just slept all the way through it. But I felt like if I didn't do this, then I'd be actually feel worse, like pushing myself to do it sort of. Does that make sense? Anyway, yeah, I'm sure you understand. Like sometimes you think a thing cancelling will make you feel better, and I'm quite good at self-preservation in that sense. But I really sort of thought, nah, I want this to have been achieved today for my own self. It's all about me. It's nothing to do with you bastards. It's all about me. I have put a little treat into this chapter for you, just a tiny one, and I'm reading it to you from bed because it's cozy. Melissa, hello, I'm finally catching it live. Been looking forward to it all day as I'm recouping from an operation. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm really sorry you've had an operation, but good that you've got to have it, and I'm glad that you're here typing and listening. We'll have a fun time today. I hope. Yeah. I read it to Tom, and I did say to Tom, I was like, I think this might be the worst chapter I've written yet. And I read it to him, and he said it wasn't. So that's good, isn't it? Is Laura breaking up with us? No, I'm not breaking up with you. I've got no one to leave you for, guys. London Calling's listening in bed too. Yeah, maybe we should make it a bedtime thing. No, that's creepy, isn't it? Right. So today's chapter, we hit the 50,000 word mark today as well, by the way, in case anybody's a little word fiend. Right, here we go. Here's today's chapter. I think you'll like it. And then I'm excited about what does Tom think is the worst chapter? He wouldn't tell me. He's far too diplomatic. He's the most delightful man in the world. Give or take 1 or 2. Right, we'll get going on the chapter, shall we? It's 5 past. Everybody's here. Okay, here we go. Emma seethed through Monday and Tuesday. She and Fiona spent both days at the shop alternating between enthusing about Theo and Simon. For reasons Emma couldn't quite put her finger on, she hadn't told Fiona about Jack's reaction after the boat trip. She wasn't sure if she was protecting Fiona, herself, or Jack by omitting the information. You don't want her to think badly of Jack. a voice in her head was insisting, and prodding her in the back of the eye, causing a dull ache as it did so. That's not true. I don't want her to feel worse than she already did about being the other woman. So I don't want to tell her he was being all judgy. An equally vocal streak of her mind argued back. Emma stood looking at Fiona, wondering whether this was true. She did feel oddly protective over Fiona, given how little time they'd known each other. If she thinks badly of Jack, then she might not be so understanding when you tell her you like him, the persistent prodding thought continued, but she raced to think over it as loudly as she could with a better thought. No, because I don't like him, I like Theo. And she couldn't argue with herself on that because the evidence definitely seemed to indicate she was heavily into Theo. Her knees felt a bit vacant at the thought of actually going for a drink with him Thursday. This object of wonder that she had adored from across an open plan office for years, he was going to be sat on a stool in front of her, looking at her and having a conversation. She thought about the montage of Bridget Jones trying to learn interesting things to talk to Daniel Cleaver about. It had always seemed ridiculous before, but now she felt an overwhelming urge to check she had interesting things to talk about. She knew it wasn't likely that she'd be able to bring up interesting things, but she at least wanted to be able to join in the conversation once he did. Her anger at Jack was always there below the surface as she chatted and planned with Fiona. She replayed their conversation from the hall over and over in her head, and in each replaying, she got less and less effective with her responses. Walking home from the shop Wednesday night in the light drizzle, she finally snapped and stopped walking, causing the man behind her to pummel into the back of her and throw her a dirty look. Shouldn't have been so close in the first place, her angriest head voice mumbled, and she checked her handbag reflexively to check he hadn't been stealing anything. She stood in the drizzle and was immensely tired of being angry with Jack. Enough, she said to herself. You thought he was nice and going to be a friend because he has a nice face and a dog and he lives upstairs. But let's face it, you barely knew him and he was rude and mean the first chance he got. A woman scurried past her, avoiding getting too close to Emma as she was quite clearly mad. So you've done enough thinking about him. You have a date tomorrow with the man of your dreams and you are going to focus on that. Emma nodded to herself, feeling much better after having given herself such a stern pep talk. She resumed walking and even managed a small, determined smile into the rain. The thought stream that was preoccupied with being angry with Jack raised a small hand to indicate it still had unfinished business, but Emma ignored it and altered her mental focus onto the drinks with Theo the next day. It suddenly occurred to her that between Fiona's drama and her anger with the neighbour, she hadn't really thought about what she would look like, what she would wear or look like. That's a good thing, said a voice in her head. That shows you're not shallow. You're more fussed about who you are than what you look like. This all felt very feminist, unlogical, and brilliant until it was Thursday morning and she needed to leave for work in 15 minutes and everything in her wardrobe looked like trash. Everything she quite liked definitely needed ironing, and a quick text to Fiona informed her that the iron in the shop hadn't worked for months. That ruled out throwing any of those into her bag for later. Everything else felt very drab. Why didn't she own anything that wasn't jeans? Because you never go anywhere, said a thought that Emma knew was her own, but that she definitely thought sounded like her sister. It felt like her brand of snark. In the end, aware that the clock was refusing to stop ticking despite her furious begging, she threw 2 armfuls of clothes and her makeup bag into her backpack and headed out of the door. She collided with a male human in the hallway who, upon closer inspection, turned out to be Jack. Sorry, she said, before she'd realised who it was. Once she had realised who it was, she was completely unable to stop herself adding, for bumping into you, not for the other day. Then she stood in silence, looking at him, wondering why he seemed like a mature grown-up and she a child, when he was wrong and she was definitely in the right. Not a problem, he said gruffly, but looked like he wanted to say more. He didn't, though. He just twitched Elliot's lead and made to go downstairs. Elliot was having none of it. He stood on the landing, gazing at Emma. She stroked his head. Have I read those names right? Yes, I think so. Elliot was having none of it. He stood on the landing, gazing at Emma. She stroked his head. Hello, boy, she said fondly. I hope you're not missing me too much. Elliot lolled a little pink tongue at her and sat down, clearly trying to persuade his master that there was further business to be had with his friend. Jack hesitated at the top of the stairs, and Emma really thought for a second he was going to say something else, But then the front door opened, and the third-floor woman and her son noisily bustled in. It broke the spell on the landing. Elliot stood up sharply, and he and Jack disappeared down the stairs to hold the door for third floor. Emma didn't know what to do. She really needed to leave too, but if she left now and headed to work, she knew she'd be following Jack and Elliot to the park, assuming they were heading to the park. She felt like she couldn't take the risk that they were, and so hovered on the landing a little while longer to avoid following them. Third floor and her son gave her an odd look as they passed, and she made a vague attempt to inspect the lock on her door to look less creepy. As she finally made her way downstairs, she realised that inspecting the lock had probably made her look more creepy, and she made a mental note to make sure that third floor woman knew she lived in the building. When Emma arrived at the shop and explained her lateness to Fiona, the eye roll Fiona gave was indistinguishable from the ones Emma had imagined for her. Emma's lunch break was a small, boring fashion show for Fiona and Anya, who had said there was no way she was missing the big prep and turned up to greet them. The best outfit was chosen more by a process of elimination than by it being brilliant. "It's not horrible," Fiona said, her head resting on one shoulder as she appraised Emma's jeans and sleeveless top. Emma smarted. "Of course it's not horrible. It's my clothes. I like this top. What's wrong with this top?" "Nothing, I said. It's not horrible," Fiona backtracked. "Yes, but saying something is not horrible rather than saying something is nice is very telling about it. Is it horrible?" Emma felt her stomach turning icy cold. Was she going to turn up to her date with Theo looking awful? She thought about all the excellent outfits she'd ever seen Elaine in and cursed herself for not having had the foresight to buy a wardrobe full of uncomfortable clothes in case she ever got a boyfriend. "It's nice, Emma. It's jeans and a top, isn't it? It's not a ball gown, but it's not a horrible jeans and a top." Fiona was doing her best impression of a mum with a teenager, and Emma got the distinct feeling she was not enjoying the role. Anya was laughing hard at the pair of them squabbling, but rather sensibly decided not to say anything. Sensible for many reasons. Their argument was interrupted, though, by loud music coming from outside. "What's that?" Emma asked, moving towards the window. Fiona followed her, and they peered out from behind the display tree at the street. "There's no festival on at the moment, is there?" Anya asked. I had to give you one. I was wondering if I could write the rest of the book coming up with reasons that Anya decides not to say things. But it seemed unlikely to last for an entire book. There's no festival on at the moment, is there?" Anya asked. Emma shrugged. "Don't know. You two'd have a better idea than me." "Must be a busker," said Fiona. "Come on, you. Get your work togs on. I'm ready for my lunch." Emma moved towards the staff door to get changed, but the music from outside seemed to be getting louder. She turned just in time to see possibly the strangest sight she had seen in her life. Outside the front door was an enormous crowd of people, with a huge 80s-style stereo resting on the floor in front of them. The crowd was young and excitable, and as Emma watched, a girl in her early 20s wearing bright tie-dye clothes and her hair in two bunches came running towards the shop. She pushed the door open, causing the little gold bell to jangle wildly, and then propped it wide with a little makeshift door jamb. Emma watched wide-eyed, taking her eyes off the scene only for a moment to share a glance with Fiona. The stereo had been playing something jolly that Emma didn't recognise, but suddenly it fell silent, and as it did so, the crowd all froze in different positions. "Oh my God, it's a flash mob!" shouted Fiona excitedly. "Like on YouTube! I've never seen one real life before." Emma's mouth had fallen open like a cartoon, but she smiled as the strains of Andy Williams began to pipe out of the stereo. "Oh, it's that song from 10 Things I Hate About You," said Fiona, grinning from ear to ear at the spectacle. "I love that bit." "I haven't seen it," said Anne. No, that's not right, is it? "I haven't seen... Oh, God." I haven't seen it, said Anya. I don't know how that would sound in Swedish. It's too much. Can't learn Swedish in a lockdown. Bleh. I haven't seen it, said Anya, and Fiona's head whipped round to chastise her, but she didn't have time. Just as Fiona turned to look at Anya, Emma gave a yelp which made Fiona's neck swing back round to see what Emma had yelped at. Emma had not yelped without good reason. Outside the shop, before the parading flash mob all dancing in unison, was Norman, dressed in a tuxedo, holding a glittery silver microphone and dancing and miming along with the track. Norman. Awful Norman. Emma blinked several times to check she could see what she knew she could see. Norman was dancing away with the crowd, singing and pointing at Fiona in the shop in the most ridiculous, overblown display of, well, affection was the word Emma's brain supplied, but she wasn't sure it was right. It was certainly a display, and it was certainly affected, though. She was far too distracted to come up with the right word. Norman was leg kicking and dancing, and the crowd behind were throwing themselves madly into the performance. Emma noticed Anya wiping tears from her eyes and made another mental note to check in later as to whether they were with or at. Eventually, the song cascaded to a finish, and onlookers outside the shop burst into rapturous applause at the display. People were lined up taking pictures and videos of the dancers and Norman. Norman laid his microphone down by the stereo and came striding into the shop to where Fiona stood, shell-shocked. Oh, what was his accent? Geordie. Newcastle. All right. Fiona, he said, taking her hands. I spent far too long taking you for granted and never being able to show you how I felt. I wanted to make that up to you today and promise to you that if you take me back, gone Jamaican, if you take me back, I will never hide from the world how I feel about you ever again. Fiona, I love you. No, that's changed accent mid-sentence. Oh, it's ruining his big moment. God damn these accents. Fiona, I love you. I don't know how to say I love you in Geordie. Fiona, I love you. I Oh, fucking hell, I've lost it. I've lost it. There's one line of the chapter left, and I can't do it. I will never hide from the world how I feel about you. Right, just gonna have to do it, Sarah. Fiona, I love you, and I want to make a proper go of it. What do you say? Fuck. Can't do this. Right, hang on. Fiona, he said, taking her hands, I spent far too long taking you for granted and never being able to show you how I felt. I wanted to make that up to you today and prove to you that if you take me back, I'll never hide from the world how I feel about you ever again. Fiona, I love you, and I wanted to make a proper go of it. What do you say? Okay, I got there eventually. Poor Norman, as if he wasn't having enough trouble in this book. His big romantic gesture was ruined by a southerner. Oh, I couldn't be any less northeast if I tried. I'm the southwest till I die. Sorry, Norman. I tried my best. So he's not well, Norman, is he? He's had a bang on the head. You're not wrong, nuts. Oh, so there you go. You chose song. You got a song that was you narrowly avoided. You were very, very close to Fiona getting proposed to, actually, because Stone was not far off. Did he just propose? No, he didn't propose, Kim. If you'd voted for Stone, he was going to propose, but song won the vote. So a song is what you guys got. So there you go. There's your chapter for today. Oh dear me. I really can't do these. Now, your question for tomorrow. I've made some pre-decisions on the vote. So these are your options. You have to give me a mode of transport. 1, walking. 2, taxi. 3, bus. Those are your options for the question tomorrow, and depending on the answer will affect the next chapter in ways that you might not be too clear of, but I think it's a fun way to do it. He hasn't got divorced yet. No, but he could still propose, couldn't he? Like you could propose to somebody else while you're waiting for, anyway. How does the song go, Laura? I love you, baby, and if it's quite all right, I need you, baby, to on the lonely night. And then he goes up and down the stairs. You know that bit? Ugh, Heath Ledger. Ugh, fit. So was he going to wrestle a bear for her? I don't think so. Fur. What was Fur going to be? Oh, he was going to get her a pet. It was going to be a terrible, overblown idea. So Norman gets hit by a bus. No, poor Norman. What's he ever done to upset you guys? So those are your options. You've got walking, bus, or taxi. You can choose between those for the next chapter, and we'll come back tomorrow, 10 p.m. tomorrow, to see how the mode of transport affects the next chapter. But thanks for giving me something to. Flowers was going to be a bit basic. Yeah, that was the other option, was he was just going to sort of I sort of thought maybe I don't plan it too much in my head, but I have a vague idea of what I can do with all the options before I give them to you, just to make sure I can write for them. I found that works best. So I think with flowers, I was thinking like maybe he'd like inundate the shop with flowers to try and get Fiona's attention. I knew I wanted Norman to fight for Fiona. I just wasn't sure what would be fun. So I thought that could be the vote. So there you go. We'll see you tomorrow. I hope you all have a nice time, and your days or your nights. Dirkus, Laura treating Norman like Theo. I love that you're on Team Theo. You're the only one still holding out for Theo. But yeah, thanks guys, and take care of yourselves, and we'll prevail. It's going to be all right, and just got to keep doing it day at a time, innit? So like and share and all that nonsense, and thank you to everybody that's pre-ordered the book. That's been very exciting. I must write some of that tomorrow as well. I've got to have it finished in less than a month, which is absolutely terrifying, to have your first novel only have 6 weeks to write it. We'll get it done, and I'll see you tomorrow at 10. Bye guys.